Story time. How one compliment from a girl changed how I viewed myself forever. Sounds a little dramatic, but it's a true story. Hear me out on this. So around 7 years ago, there was a summer camp that my older brother and I would go to once a year. My parents knew the owners and people who ran the camp, and they would let us go for free or at a big discount if we would help them do some last minute preparations for their summer camp. And this was, I think it was my third year going to this camp. I had gone the 2 years prior to it. We skipped 1 year in between there. So this is about 2019, early high school for me. And I would say this was both the best summer camp experience I had, and it was also simultaneously one of the worst for a couple of reasons. So, to lay it out, this summer camp would go on for 5 days. It was like a youth Christian camp. And, they do the classic camp stuff. Zip lines and tubing. And, they'd separate boys from girls, obviously. We'd have cabins. So, just your basic summer camp experience. And this camp would go almost the entire week. So, about 4 to 5 days of spending time together with people. And a lot can happen in that time period. Now, during this time, I was slowly beginning to lose weight. This was right around the time that I went from being super chubby, being a super chubby boy, to mildly less chubby. But I hadn't lost all the weight yet. I was still in that weird, awkward position where I was still kind of chubby, but not as bad as I was. Even though I had lost weight, I still had a lot of self-esteem issues, and I really hated looking at myself in the mirror. I hated how I looked, and I was extremely insecure about myself. I tended to put a lot of people on pedestals, and I tended to not like the way I looked, so I would beat myself down. And I would not say anything negatively about myself when I was with other people, but it was the mindset of how I viewed myself. The first day or two, they go pretty well, but so I make a mistake when I'm there. So there's this girl there. For the life of me, I cannot remember what her name is. So we'll call her Amelia. But there's this girl, she's a little shorter than me, maybe about a year or two younger, this Amelia person. And she has glasses and blonde hair, but she is, I don't know what her issue was, but she loved attention. All right. The type. This was that person on steroids. I remember one thing that she was constantly boasting about was how good she was at table hockey. Where you whack it and stuff. But ice hockey, whatever they want to call it. But she boasted to everyone in camp that she was the undefeated champion at her school or church or something. And anyway, during lunch, I think it was on day 2, I decided to see, I kind of friendly challenged them. Okay, we'll see if you're as good as you are. So we go to the game room after lunch, and I easily beat them. 10, I was a 10-2, all right, in scoring. So easily beat them. I didn't think much of it. The problem was that I gave this person, a lot of attention. I wasn't distracted or looking away. I just, I casually talked to them a lot. I didn't really think much of it. Because the thing was that I didn't really know anyone at the summer camp other than my brother and a few mildly familiar faces, but I didn't really know anybody. And this person was willing to talk to me, so I talked to them a bunch. That was a bit of a mistake. Because, I kid you not, between lunch of that day and the next morning, this girl went around all over camp and told everybody about me and how I beat her at this game. And it was odd. Okay, it was a little weird because the thing is, almost all the girls shared 1 to 2 cabins, so nearly all of them heard about this guy, me, And then a bunch of the other guys also heard about it. And the thing was, I didn't know this at the time. This girl was a little cuckoo, a little. She wasn't autistic, but there was something. I think it's just a little different about them. But that's not the point. The point of the matter was that everyone at camp all of a sudden hears about me. Gotta keep in mind, I know literally almost none of these people, and almost none of them know who I am aside from the owners of the camp, my brother, and a few other people. So, naturally, this causes a bunch of weird issues. All of a sudden, everybody knows my name and stuff. Fun. And not only that, but then all of a sudden, this Amelia girl's friends, during the next meal, they all come and sit down where I'm at and stuff. And I'm not really sure how to react. You gotta keep in mind, I'm an early high schooler, extremely insecure, barely talk to any girls. And this Amelia person and like 3 or 4 of her friends all come and sit at the table I'm sitting at by myself. And it gets worse. So they sit at the table I'm at during this, I think it was dinner time or breakfast or something. And they don't say a word. Or like I try to start the conversation. I get like one word responses. And that makes my insecurity go up even higher. It's the most awkward meal I think I've ever had in my life. I just had this Amelia girl and her 3 friends, and I think the problem was Amelia, this girl, gassed me up so much to her friends. They must have thought I was like the most impressive Chad ever or something, because they didn't say a word the entire time I sat there. Like, and when I did try to talk to them, it was like yups, nopes, one word responses. And then after that, not much else happened. The next meal, nobody else sat by me, so I must not have lived up to the reputation this Amelia girl put out there. Alright, so this was really weird for me. And naturally, because these people didn't sit with me afterwards, that also made me feel like I'd done something wrong, or I didn't live up to the reputation people had for me. So, just none of this is off to a very good start, okay? I gave an attention seeker attention, and they went and told everybody about me, and then a bunch of their friends came over, only to be sorely disappointed I was far more boring or normal than they anticipated. And then they all went away, and then I felt like I'd done something wrong because of it. So this is all a great start. So I thought day 2 of camp and this weird situation with this Amelia girl and her friends, I thought maybe it would just blow over. Day 3 will be fine. I was wrong, okay? I was so wrong, because the next day, it's day 3 of camp. And rumors are going around camp all of a sudden that I wrote a love letter to a different girl named Natalie. And make matters worse, there was a sappy, romantic love letter written to a different girl in the camp. And it was somehow put in the girls' dorm, so a bunch of people were making these assumptions that a guy had to have snuck into the girls' dorm during one of the times when no one was in there and left it for her. And so if that wasn't weird enough, the love letter was signed in my name. Now, not my entire name, but only my first name. What? Yeah. Needless to say, I did not do that. I did not sneak into a girl's dorm and write a love letter to a different girl. But I don't know why that happened. I don't know who would write a whole-on love letter to one of the girls at the camp and then sign it with someone else's name and then leave it there. I'm 90% sure, looking back, that it was that Amelia girl and that she was trying to stir up drama or trying to just create chaos. I don't know what the mix was. Yeah, crazy week of camp. I have this Amelia girl, tells everyone in camp about me. Great. Then I have all her friends show up at my table, and then they find out I'm actually quite boring and I'm not a Chad. And then to make matters worse, the next day I'm accused of writing a love letter to a different girl, and I have Amelia asking me, "Did you write this love letter to this person?" And I'm like, no. And to make matters worse, this girl that the love letter was written to had a crush on a guy that I kind of was sort of friends with. So it was a really awkward and terrible situation. So what does this have to do with me getting a compliment that changed my life? Well, we're getting to that. So, needless to say, all these events that occur kind of made my insecurity only get worse. Because now I felt like everyone was looking at me like I was this gassed up romantic loser who wrote a love letter and then denied it after writing his name on it, and just all this crap happened, and I felt pretty bad at camp, not gonna lie. I feel like if I was older, I actually would have felt just amused by the situation, but I was younger and I got embarrassed a lot more easily back then. And because of this was just something that just really bothered me. But now we're going to get to the part that this actual title of this video is based on. So, because of this issue of feeling like everyone was staring at me and knew who I am, I ended up only hanging out with this Amelia girl, this attention-seeking girl, this entire time at camp. Pretty much avoided anyone else, even the other guys. And even though at the time I couldn't see it, the only reason this Amelia girl was hanging out with me was because I was giving her attention when nobody else would. Because you gotta understand, most of the other people at camp knew this girl already because they went to the same school and stuff. I was young, I was stupid, and I didn't see that this person was only hanging out with me for attention. Fast forward to day 4 of camp, and 2 people show up in the game room while Amelia and I are hanging out in there. And one of the people goes over and starts talking to Amelia. And meanwhile, this other girl who my brother knew asks me if I can come out of the game room for a second so you can talk to me. And so, I just naturally follow her out the door. And when she shuts it, she said something that really stuck with me years later. And that was that you shouldn't hang out with this person. And it was something like that, but it wasn't. She said something like that, but it wasn't that stuck out to me. It was what she said afterward. And it was, you deserve better. You deserve better than what you currently are doing. And those 3 words, you deserve better, they stuck with me. Because up until this point in my life, I was extremely insecure. I was fat, and even though I had lost weight, I somehow only felt worse. I did not like how I looked in the mirror, and I did not believe I deserved anything. But anyway, I'm kind of fast forwarding it ahead here, so let's go back a bit. So, after they told me that you deserve better, they told me to come and hang out with them and my older brother and a few other people that my older brother had been hanging out with, and I was cool with that. So we hang out together until it's dinner time, and then after that, right? Amelia goes, they find me, like, where have you, and they are like pissed off, where have you been? You're not giving me attention, sort of thing. Even they didn't say that in words, but that's basically what they meant. And they demanded that I had to stop spending time with anyone else and go do something with them. And I remember the first time in my life I had some balls, and I told them no. That I shouldn't have to feel, I shouldn't have to only spend time with you. I shouldn't have to be someone who has to abandon and cut off everyone else just to hang out with you. And I wasn't rude about it, but I was firm about it. For the first time in my life, I was firm about it. And needless to say, Amelia doesn't really react as if she's heard this 1,000 times before. And I end up hanging out with my older brother and a few other people, including the girl who told me you deserve better, at camp for the rest of the time. Fast forward to the last day of camp, I end up just hanging out with my brother and the girl who told me I deserved better and a few other people the rest of the time. All right. But the thing that I noticed was that the moment that I told this Amelia person, this attention seeker, that I wasn't going to spend all my time with them at camp anymore, the moment I told them that, they moved on and they didn't care. And I kid you not, the next day at camp, they're off with another guy blabbing to everyone about him and playing games together as if I never happened. And this was such a valuable life lesson for me, even though I didn't realize it at the time. It was a couple of things. Because for one, I realized that I never meant anything to this person. They only wanted the attention. And that number two, I didn't have to feel like I could only hang out with this person. And I was socially isolating myself in a sense at camp from other people purely because this girl wanted me to. And number three, a lot of the problems that I had been enduring at camp had been entirely in my head. People never cared that much about the love letter or about this or that. And chances are Amelia wrote the love letter too. Chances are she wrote that as an attempt to either get a rise out of me or to sow discord at camp. I don't know what it was. But the point of this story was the compliment that this other girl who liked my brother at the time gave me. And the statement that you deserve better, it's stuck with me over the years. To this day, those words, you deserve better, have stuck with me. Because I realized for the first time in my life that I didn't have to be a loser. And it's funny because, it hit me hard because I was extremely insecure. I was struggling with my self-identity and how I viewed myself. And to have somebody sit there and go, "Oh, you deserve better. Stop selling yourself short." They saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. I don't really regret, actually, that camp. Because, like I said, those words spoken in that crappy game room in that moment, even if that girl didn't realize it, the girl who had and you gotta remember, this came from a girl who had a crush on my brother. It wasn't like, she said it because she romantically liked me. And as funny as it sounds, it actually hit harder because of that. Because she had no reason to tell me I deserved better unless she truly meant it. And it just, like I said, man, 7 years later, it still hits hard. It still sticks with me. And it's funny because all these years later, I've never told anyone this story. Aside from my older brother who was at camp with me. And even he has never known the sheer significance that this story's had on my life. That's the end of my story here. Maybe I'll share more stories in the future. This is just one of the many stories where my life was truly changed because somebody told me something in the moment, and it changed how I viewed myself forever. End of story. Yeah.